Hello, everyone, and welcome to the World Bank Creative Cities event series. Thank you for joining us for our third event of this series on how creativity can promote the making of more livable, sustainable, and competitive cities and regions. I am Victor Mulas, the team lead of the Tokyo Development Learning Center, and it's a pleasure to come to you live today from Tokyo. You know, the travel and tourist industries has been among the hardest hit sectors by the pandemic. Yet, as the world is gradually reopening their borders to the new normal, we look to the cultural heritage, the creative assets, and other artistic activities to help lead the recovery and boost the competitiveness of cities and regions. The concept of creative cities is a strategic way to view urban development anchored on the wide spectrum of local history, culture, and artistic expressions of various forms and industries within a city and region that can be packaged to unlock new opportunities. In our previous event of this series, we look at the enablers that make up a creative city and how these enablers played out in practice in the creative communities of Kyoto City. Today, we will explore creativity from a different angle. We will look at how local creative assets can be leveraged in the form of art festivals to promote sustainable tourism and local economic development. Before we get started, let me just share with you some housekeeping announcements. First of all, simultaneous interpretation is available for this webinar. For those who wish to listen in Japanese, please click on the interpretation icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen and select the Japanese language option. English speakers, please select English at this time. Throughout the sessions, please feel free to drop any questions or comments to our speakers in the chat space. We will have a short Q&A segment at the end of the sessions, and you can post your questions in English or Japanese, and our TDLC master chat will bring your questions to the speakers. Lastly, please note that this event is being recorded and the recording will be made available on our TDLC website. Now, I think we are ready to get started. Today, we are honored to have Mr. Hettiarachchi, the Secretary of Tourism from the government of Sri Lanka, to join us for this event and deliver the opening remarks. Mr. Secretary, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Victor. I think from Sri Lanka, it's good afternoon, now almost 12:30. Actually, I express my sincere thanks to the World Bank Group for inviting me to deliver this keynote speech on how art festivals, achieving local economic development leverage through art festivals. So in 2020, January, I had an opportunity to participate in a workshop on creative cities in Kyoto. I think I would thank Ms. Hettiarachchi. She also organized this under LDSP project in Sri Lanka. So I have participated that workshop, and most of the, not only Asian, but even European countries also participate that. During that meeting, I got a lot of experiences. Most of the countries, especially in Europe, they have a lot of this kind of ideas and art festivals to promote tourism, and then they develop those cities as a tourist attraction. Basically, as a tourism secretary, then I more focused on tourist attraction. So then after in 2019 in Sri Lanka, most of the youth came forward in voluntarily, and they have did wonderful things in Sri Lanka, because they after changing that the previous government, and they want to new look, and most of the young youth, teenagers and the university students came forward, and they have done a lot of things. Most of the street beside the street, the walls and bridges in highways, walls, they came forward voluntarily, and they put various type of arts. So then during that time, I discussed with that development group, with Yarissa and other colleagues, then how we are going to do same, how to encourage this type of youth. And I propose to have such a nice art festival in Sri Lanka. But it is a new thing for our country, but I learned a lot of things in Japan. It's very popular among the tourists and the Japanese people. So I want to introduce that type of thing in Sri Lanka, but you know, it is, I came 2020 in March, you know, that 2020 January, in 2020 March, you know, that the world is, we have faced the big dilemma with that COVID situation, so that we are unable to, complete this task. But anyway, so then I don't want to give up that idea. And so I have a new idea to create a city of organizing, a city of L and the Uva province to organize some kind of some flower carnival. So the parallel that flower carnival, we can arrange some kind of few side events. So one of these is the art festival focus on flowers. So this is my idea. The selected area is in Uva province. The main city is Bandarawala. Then I can show that I can share that area in Sri Lanka is Bandarawala and Haputale and Ella. These are very, the most tourist attractive areas in Sri Lanka. This 9-arch bridge in Ella, it is, it is an iconic thing in Sri Lanka, and a lot of the colonial hotels in Bandarawala and Haputale also. You can see that the person with that hat is called the Lipton. The place is Lipton seat. The Lipton, you know, that popular brand name in tea. The person who start first tea plantation in Haputale. So this area, between this area, then I selected in Bandarawala. This Bandarawala is actually, it is a very, it's a very mild weather is there. Due to higher altitude, Bandarawala has a mild weather condition throughout the year. Hence, it is popular among the citizens to spend the vacation with their families. And the tourists, the foreign tourism, is the most attractive place. And Bandarawala is between Ella and Haputale, so that's the perfect place to have such an event. And ladies and gentlemen, that in Sri Lanka we have already established flower growing societies in almost in every district. There are 25 districts. There are about 200 flower growers societies, and the membership of these societies are around 8,000. Small and medium scale growers are about 10,000, and indirect beneficiaries from the trade are about 100,000. So we propose to hold a flower carnival like event in Bandarawala with collaboration of Nuwara Municipal Council, which will provide immense opportunities for the flower growers in the area and all scattered throughout the island to increase their income. Especially then we can focus on basically the development livelihood of their people, especially most of the members of those societies are women. So then we can they are in their homes, and they are the flower they did their horticulture things, especially the flower garden, and they are not doing any other job, so that they are normally the housewife, so they can engage without any time limitation. In addition to that, the school children also, they can participate after their school time. They can come and help their mother or their sisters to grow the flowers. So the popularization of the flower plantation we can, get immense benefits. The main objective of the ministry and the other tourism agencies and the ministry is to help people increase their income through their participation in the economic development process. I'm sure that this concept is creative cities. Will Sri Lanka march towards its goal of achieving higher economic growth and increase income of the less income earners to the society? From the Sri Lanka, there's a separate scheme from the government to increase livelihood for the benefit of the especially rural people in the society. So in this, the Flower Festival will help to expand their home guards and growing areas. So Sri Lanka is really rich biodiversity, tropical weather, and abundance of growth material and rise in demand for cut flowers, foliage, and live ornamental plants, especially to European market. That are especially bred and ethically cultivated offers Sri Lanka plant breeders, cultivators, and exporters an opportunity to expand our export market. Into 2019, we export around 18 million worth of flowers, cut flowers, and various foliage. And 2020 and 2021, it goes down. 2020 goes down as 13 million US dollars, and 2021 little bit increased 16 because of the COVID situation, the transport and getting the fertilizer and other material. There are a lot of restrictions, so that it is little bit difficult to increase. But anyway, from 2022 onwards, we want to improve that the sector. So we have some small the requirements from your side to improve that type of thing. Improve the expansion of horticulture. It's getting new variety is the problem, and imports of new varieties also a problem, and especially the tissue culture labs. The small society has tissue culture labs, but we want to get some kind of technical assistance to improve those small labs. Then they can expand their planting material and other requirements. Then the other requirement is the value addition. They don't know how to, they cut flower, they export the cut flowers, and in addition to that, there are big demand in the local market for wedding and other things. And we popularize under tourism promotion, the wedding tourism, especially a lot of there are inquiries from India, so they want to have their weddings in Sri Lanka. So there are big demand in even a local market, and some of around 10,000 US dollars worth of flowers they import from India and China. So we want
Mr.
to
Secretary, we need to move on with the program. If you can just wrap up in the next 1 minute, we would really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yes. So my main idea is instead of the art festival, we want to have some kind of the flower festival, and parallel with that, we want to have some connected event. So then the one event is have a art exhibition purely focused on flowers and nature. So these are the things I want to explain to you, and I will thank to have that opportunity to speak with these few words. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary. This has opened the event with your remarks and has set the stage for us and bring the whole perspective of Sri Lanka and the possibilities that we have in the country as we move forward. Now, let's get started with the core content of the program. The keynote speaker for today's event is Fram Kitagawa. Mr. Kitagawa is the chairman of the Art From Gallery and the pioneer of the art festival methodology. He has over 40 years of experience in organizing and directing exhibitions. Fram has served as the general director of the Echigo-Tsumari Art Triennale since 2000 and has made a major contribution to the development of the region through art. He has also served as the general director of the Setouchi Triennale, the Boso Satoyama Art Festival, Ichihara Art Mist, Northern Alps Art Festival, and the Okunoto Triennale. He is the recipient of many awards, including the Haute Arts de Lettres from the French Republic, the Order of Culture from the Republic of Poland, the Japanese Education Minister's Award for Art, and the Order of Australia as honorary member. He was awarded the Japanese Medal of Honor with Purple Ribbon in 2016, the Asahi Prize in 2017, and he was designated as Person of Cultural Merit in 2018. It is a real pleasure and honor to have Fram to join us today. Fram, the stage is yours.
Hi. Kitagawa from
Yes, I am from Kitagawa. Thank you very much, Victor. Today, we're talking about opening up the local possibilities with art. And what are there? I would like to talk about what they are. This is a curtain on the window. But from the cutout area, you can see the scenery of this region. And there used to be the winding river, and that 3.5 kilometer and 700 poles was there, and you can see how the river used to be. And for the last 12,000 years, the river has actually cut out the land, and this topography was formed. And this is what we call MONE, Modern Art Museum. And Chinese Gao has actually used this as a art form and showing the challenging international situation with this. And this is Abraham Beach, the house that has been left. There are people who are staying there, and they can make dreams and see dreams. And with the connection of the dreams, you can have a common hope. And so this is a artwork using unoccupied house, and you see different things in the dreams, and they are recorded. And this is the Christian Boltanski from France, who passed away last year. An old gymnasium was used, and the thatched were used that was used in this region, and old electric fan is rotating, and the light is shaking, and they are just praying for those who have died. And this is a very heavy snowing region, and they are remembering the people who have passed away in this region. And this is a regional hotel. The James Tassel has modeled, created this house modeling after the old house in this region, and the accommodation facility was built, and together with Echigo-Tsumari Art Triennale, we are also looking at the artwork of the Setouchi Triennale International Art Festival, and this is the artwork that is located in the port region, and this is national park, so you are not allowed to build any buildings. So the art museum that was buried in the underground, and you can actually experience that art museum. Tadao Ando made this art museum, and on this island, the elderly people cannot heat up the bath every day, so there is a commonly used bath or public bath for the local residents, and they are very popular and free of charge. and they can feel that they have been enriched, and this is the inside of the bath, public bath. And this is a Seto Inland Sea Teshima Island, about 10 meters high. There is a circular form building, and it could rain outside, and water is important for this region, and water is the theme of this, and water will come up from underground, and this is one of the most popular art museums in the world, and there is no sculpture and any technologies used, but the water is the pure theme of this art museum. And this is a different island, and 150 residents only, but 8 different languages are used to create this roof in order to get connection with the rest of the world. And the wedding party was held, and this is the community space that they created, and also workspace was used in this region. The movie theater that was used in the last time of New York has been actually transferred. And also in the depopulated area in this region, there are little shops that were created, and you use the island residents also use this, and on this island shops they can buy various things, and so they are trying to have a real traveling or traffic of people centering around the shops. And this is Hansen disease sanatorium, and they were people with Hansen disease were isolated in this, and they was empathizing how they were feeling, and the children in the world can play in this park. And so those who used to live in this sanatorium, wishing for connection with the outside world is expressed in here. And the small vacant house is now being used to serve local delicacy, and also birthday parties for local residents are held. So the settlements that could be divided up, or elderly people and tourists get together and enjoy themselves in this restaurant. And there are a lot of different islands, and the islands tend to be divided, but they do hold the workshops, and you can connect the fishing lines that have different ways of sewing, and they can remember the connection they used to have. So these are the kind of things that we do in the Triennale Art Festival. And as for Echigo-Tsumari, there is a land plate, and there is climate, and then the soil would emerge, and plant will grow, and animals will be born. And hunting and agriculture, the primary industry was born. And of course, the food is important, and there's life and rituals. And then nature and human beings were together. So this is the fundamental form. So in this International Art Festival, the human beings are part of nature. That is very important. And global environment has become quite important in this day and age. And the prototype of the relationship between human beings and nature was discovered. And then the visitors can see that. And also the separation from nature or efficiency, giving priority to efficiency or disparity society, uneven society. In these societies, people are having emotions, and they can reset them how they live. So this has become quite popular. And with the power of art, you can help each other. And the art that would take a lot of efforts and quite weak would be actually revitalized, and then people can get connection. So this is the where this art festival of land is being held, and the most snowy part of the country. And from Tokyo, if you take bullet train, a Shinkansen or car, it's about 2 hours plus. And the Japan's longest river is running, and there's river terraces there. And there's no flat land, and there were always landslides that were happening. So you shortcutted the river and converted into rice paddies, or the landslide areas are converted into terraced rice fields, and it's still have snow 4 meters high, and agriculture has been pursued, but in the modern era, the aging and depopulation, decline of Satoyama, and collapse of local communities with the primary industry collapsing. So they are trying to use art as a trigger to revitalize the region, and art festival was that's how art festival started.
So these are the posters of the Setouchi Triennale. The theme is islands, but also we also focus on the elderly citizens to energize them. So the grandpas and grandmothers and grandfathers are on the posters. This is where Setouchi is. It is in the part of the western Japan, so it's an inner sea or inland sea. Japan is an island country, the 62nd biggest country, but the coastline is 6th in the world. So it's a quite long coastline. And we attract a lot of people from outside, and then we digested different cultures and then grew as a nation. And this Setouchi inner sea is a quite mild sea and a quite rich area which thrived. But in recent years, they suffered a lot. So because of the toxic gas, the environment of the island suffered, and the people left the island. And we want to call them back, and we want to enrich the island, and we want to provide the good environment for people, and we belong to connect with the rest of the world. Under the rapid economic growth period, the natural environment was deteriorated because they gathered a lot of rubbles, the gravels from the sea. Well, Japan is an atoll of the Eurasian continent, and then people from different parts of the world gathered in Japan, and it sort of nurtured culture of Japan based on a variety of culture brought into this island. That's how we developed our culture. However, the Setouchi is suffering aging and depopulation and decline of local industries, and they are separated from the sea, and they suffered from environmental destruction and pollution, and islands are isolated. So we really want to revitalize this area and make the elderly citizens proud of the region. So since 2000, well, it took 4.5 years to prepare this art festival, but we were able to attract a lot of artworks. So the soil, climate, and agriculture, these become a medium for the artists to be creative. So artists find that the people have different ideas and different background. They recognize the diversity, and based on which they develop their artworks. When you see the contemporary artworks, especially in a rural area, people initially said they have no idea what contemporary art was. However, nowadays, they see how the community was revitalized and people are energized and attracting a lot of people from outside the community. Actually, in Echigo-Tsumari, we attract more than 500,000 people. Since 2010, the Setouchi Art Festival at Triennale started. The number of artworks continued to rise, and some of them been removed, but some are still existing. Over the 100 days, more than 1 million people visited this festival. If you look at the final part of this table, you can see is that a large number of supporters. So about 3,000 for Echigo-Tsumari, and at Setouchi, more than 7,000 volunteers came to support. And actually, surprisingly, more than half of these volunteers are non-Japanese, coming from outside Japan, not limited to students. Therefore, contemporary art naturally connected with the natural environment, and the humanity thrives there, and they would really feel the humanity in the environment, and they can reset their lives there, and they really want to bring that experience back to their home country. So that's how we continued on. Today, this art festival become a role model to other art festivals. In the contemporary art world, it has become a new sort of trend. You go outside the white cube, you go outside of the museum, and then create based on the local attributes. So this has become the typical model to attract a lot of visitors. And for visitors, this is a very interesting event. And also, it is a very, very enjoyable and pleasing event for the local communities. 80% or more people are very much pleased with the outcome of this art festival. So artists would look into the local capital, local assets. For locals, most of those assets are nothing new, but artists as an outsider can see things from a different perspective and have a new discovery, which is very important. And then through the process, artists would have exchanges with the local community, and there will be a collaboration. And that would really revitalize the local community, because without engagement of locals, outcome would be boring. They would provide wisdom, and they would participate in various manners. This collaboration with the community would draw not only the power of art, but also as they collaborate to create together, visitors also participate in the process of collaboration. So in the 21st century, this is the new phase of the experiencing the power of art.
So they are all quite hospitable, giving omotenashi. So you have to be actually physically there to experience the art. But it's not just art, but the land that you walk on and the wind that will blowing through toward your cheeks. The power of the land will be communicated, and word of mouth communication is used, and people are being attracted to that place. And if I put it differently, it's different from gallery or art museums. It's art that is quite appropriate to and suitable to the specific place. And that is what we call site-specific art. This is a new way of doing art. For example, flowers that were mentioned by Secretary, Mr. Secretary. And you can make the attractiveness very clear, and that would make the flowers shine. And you can communicate the specialty products and attractiveness of that particular community can be communicated. And let me just sort this out. Art, when you say art, it's not just the artwork. but many things get involved and you can express that art. And that is how the artwork is attractive. And you can discover the land site and the people who got away from that community can be remembered. So in land site of 1 hectare, just white shirts and aprons are blowing in the wind, but the population is declining and communities are losing power, and that is what people can experience through this artwork. And so this is not the art museums, but in the actual physical site, there is art there. So in a sense, 200 or 300 years ago, or even longer than that, Altamira last, uh, that age of nature and human beings, the relationship is now being expressed. And the global environment is now at the risk, and this is the art that is recommended in this age. And this is the rivers that have that are now straight, but they used to be winding. That's what you can remember. And this is Ilya and Kovakov artwork, and in a very narrow terraced rice paddies, and there is artwork that is on the 50 meters away terrace, and then there is a frame work, and you can actually read the text and see this as artwork as well. And this is a new accommodation with a more attractiveness. Roof and the floor all are sculpted, and it was reborn. And this used to be a old school houses, and the floating lumbers and the old tree branches were used. And this is the most popular school that is now closed. And you can see the sign. The Dutch architect and Japanese designer co-created this artwork, and this is the signage that they have created. And if you come from outside, this has become a specialty for the spring. And on the left, you see the British artist, the buildings in London. If you bring this building to Japan, then you can see that it's upside down, and so you can see the connection with the foreign countries. So these two art festivals are held every 3 years, 50 days for one and 100 days for the other. But the most important is the remaining 1,000 days. So you spend 1,000 days attending athletic meet or other rituals, and you can get connection with the local community. And through the process, there are many people who help you out, and people get resettled, and communities have become revitalized. So for the art festival that is held every 3 years, they spend 1,000 days to work for that. And on the right, in a small school, 400,000 dressing pins are used to create this. And it just happened that on the left, as you can see, the old ladies on the left spent more than 1 month to do the sewing. That is the strength for them. And they people in their 50s to 80s, each one of them participated. And this is Chiang Mai, Thailand. And the oldest settlement is this one. And local residents' livelihood is quite common. And in those two areas, and they get along with each other because of this work art. And this is the waste land, and equipment was left, and very popular park was established. And here, the place that was damaged by the earthquake, and there was a former landslide site, but this is a no stage, the world's smallest no play stage, and this is a French architect artwork, and this a small park right next to the road. There is a artwork that was created, and then there is unique hub facilities that were created. This has been converted to modern art museum, and Boltanski, after the earthquake, came up with this, and Dutch architect created this, the Algerian Cultural Center, and on the first floor, a very large live concert was held by the popular musician, and Kabakov, who created terraced rice paddies. Of course, you cannot move too much under the pandemic, but you have to give more thoughts to this. And the artist that was not able to express and publish their work of art until 54 years old, and then he came up with this. And nature is quite rich, and you can see the migrating bird, and all the residents are scientists in this natural art museum, and they use old facilities to come up with the work of art with the specific themes. And in here, they have to spend 4 months removing the snow overnight, and they focused on this snow removal work. And in the bank of the river, the snow workers dance is something that you can remember. And so you are expressing how hard they are working.
And this is a small house. It was a vacant house converted into a restaurant. So top-notch potters came and converted this house into a restaurant. Is very, very successful. So the cuisine is a big thing here. Those visitors who come here, they would go to islands or Satoyama and enjoy contemporary art. And if you survey them, they say that we were very happy to eat the local food, communicate with locals. I really enjoyed the festival. So those are the opinions that we get through survey. So the people today really like to be in the natural environment and communicate with others. So these are the events that we implement, and one of the focus is food and cuisine, and we also sell the processed food. And as we implement various events, a lot of self-built structures came about, and also the international participation have increased. Hong Kong project going on, Chinese house, China house, and Australian house are there. So in Setouchi, 8 countries and regions participate to have a common place. So that's how we go about involving different countries. So these are small regions. However, our ambition is to connect with the rest of the world. I think that's very important. As was mentioned, Ilya Kabakov, the artist, lives in the US, but Ilya Kabakov is originally from Ukraine and is Russian. So you can see the diversity in the participating artists and how they're trying to connect the world. So that's how we promote our event. As I said earlier, more than half of the supporters who come here to help are from outside Japan. And this kind of collaboration is achieved in the world of art, and especially in these regions, we attract a lot of people. Thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Fram, for unpacking this methodology through the various artworks and festivals. What we have seen today is how 2 regions that were in a depressed situation, Echigo-Tsumari was a rural area that was full with agriculture-based economy, but it was suffering from declining population, It was also one of the problems that have in Japan is aging. And in Setouchi Islands, we saw the problems of environmental sustainability. We saw the problems of soil degradation that were happening. Then we saw earthquakes happening. And all this methodology, what it did is it went to these areas that had these challenges that were in a depressed status, and it revamped them. And now we saw the pictures of how they look now and how we look today. And that's an amazing result. So we are very pleased to have seen that. And thank you so much, Franza, for that. Now, the question is, how do we take this methodology and replicate it and reproduce outside Japan? And to explore this question, we will look now at how the World Bank piloted this methodology in Sri Lanka, to contextualize it and apply it to the country environment. So I would like now to invite my colleague Jarisa Sommer, who is a senior urban specialist based in Singapore, to talk to you about the project that she leads, which pilot this methodology and provide the context of the country. Jarisa, thank you for being with us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Victor. I'm having a bit of a bandwidth issue, so I'm not going to use my video. Please excuse me for that. What I'm going to do now is just share my screen. Hang on. So please let me know once you see the screen.
We do see the screen. Yeah, now it's perfect.
Okay, very good. So yes, thank you again, Victor, for your introduction, Mr. Hettiarachchi for the opening remarks. Okay, a little bit about what we're doing in Sri Lanka. First of all, we have a World Bank finance project called the Local Development Support Project. And essentially, it's a World Bank loan of about 70 million. And we have support from the European Union as well of about 23 million. And of course, there's counterpart funding from Sri Lanka. Now, what is the purpose of this project? Well, this project is really supporting 134 local authorities in 4 provinces. So in the north, you have North Central, the east, and we also have Uva province here. So 4 provinces, and these provinces primarily because here, you know, is where a lot of rebuilding was required. It's also known as the state area where there's a lot of tea plantations, but also a lot of poverty. So these 4 regions were selected because of high poverty rate, and we support local authorities in delivering services to communities. We work with, as I said, 134 local authorities, but these dots that you see here are ongoing sub-projects that have been implemented. So these are a number of things. Now, I'll come back to the project. I'll give you a little bit of background in terms of Sri Lanka for those who are not familiar. Now, in Sri Lanka, the bottom 40%, essentially how the bank sort of defines, you know, the poor, how many live below 40%. And here you can see in the first slide that a lot of the poor live in about a 30-kilometer radius from Colombo, which is here, which is the largest city in Sri Lanka. And the rest sort of are scattered, and this is a lot of rural areas. And the most of the economic potential is around Colombo in this axis here, between Colombo and Galle and Colombo and Kandy. So this is where a lot of the activity happens, economic activity. A lot of it was focused here primarily because of 30 years of war up here. And our project is focusing in those areas, as you can see. Now, if you look at the nightlight analysis that the World Bank has done, you can also see the economic activities here. For example, here you see more light, so you can see there's more economic activity and much less so in this part of Sri Lanka. So this gives you another view of, you know, how the economic activity is not balanced in the country. So what is the government trying to do? Government right now, especially post 30 years of the conflict, and now even more so as part of COVID recovery, is trying to have a balanced regional development. And tourism was emerging as an important growth driver in these urban areas. So apart from Colombo, the secondary cities are Jaffna up here, Trincomalee, and then we have Gaul, we have Particular, Aparna here, and Anuradhapura. So these are sort of the secondary cities outside of Colombo. And as you can see, tourism pretty much plays a huge part in economic activity of the country, in addition to business and fishery and all of that. So the international tourism industry contributed 2.98 billion to Sri Lanka's economy, and that has been severely affected during COVID. And here again, another slide showing you sort of how many jobs are directly created by the tourism industry. And the reason I'm is because the local development support project as a structure in terms of reviving local economic development. And a lot of the requests coming from these regions are focused on tourism, hence I'm just focusing on that. So I'm not going to go into too much of the methodology of what we did, because that's my colleague Victor will be going through it. A little bit of, to give you a regions have. So this is the province up there, and you can see they have hot spring, beautiful beaches, cultural heritage, famous for cuisine. I'm sure you know you've had the black pepper crab. A lot of people at East Asia and Sri Lanka like to eat that. It sort of I think originate in Sri Lanka. Then we have the North Central province out here, where we have national parks. We have we have a lot of religious cultural heritage, for example. A lot of areas you saw with the night lights picture is underdeveloped, rural predominantly, and requires a lot of reviving support in terms of local economic development. Then there's Uva province, as Mr. Hettiarachchi was saying, it's up in the highlands. There's a lot of opportunities for adventure tourism. It's key for tea and a lot of tea and coffee actually. It also has national parks. So a lot of not culture, but a lot of natural resources and beauty that that Sri Lanka has that hasn't been tapped at all. A lot of people sort of focus their attention here in Colombo and down here in Gaul. And finally, the Eastern Province, beautiful beaches, great for surfing. Again, cultural heritage, you see whales and dolphins and a lot of sea adventures. So all of these assets need to be tapped. And the local development support project, we were wondering how to do it. Of course, we have these small sub-projects that support community needs. So they water supply, basic needs, water supply, activity, things like that. And not wanted, but now we're going back to a post-recovery period with development. Now, what are the challenges for creativity as maybe a catalyst for development? Now, the challenges we have in Sri Lanka are pretty much similar to other. And for example, a lot of don't have land use plans. Ownership assets belong to mostly government institutions that don't work together. There's clearly a lack of funds and investment strategies. There's weak linkages, say, between the tourism industry, the local government, tourism ministry, local government ministry, the NGOs and other institutions. There's always a fear right, removal of slums. How do you do it? How do you do it so that the people are not affected negatively and yet benefit from sort of development activities? There's of course poor maintenance, inappropriate design of current buildings that sort of are an eyesore in the urban space. So all of this you have to also sort of consider while you're thinking of leveraging art and creativity and identify sort of avenues for sort of art festivals and creativity to bring in and attract economic development. So as I said, coming back to the project, the other thing in addition to the grants that the local authorities, that we have about 8 million allocated. We are supporting the investments of local of economic infrastructure. And we currently are implementing 26 economic on tourism in the northern. The idea of creativity is also there because it focuses on supporting the local bird industry to Sri Lanka. And if you ever plan to go to Sri Lanka, you should, probably look at the Eastern province. They have, in addition to tourism, they have a lot of curd, and you must try some of the curd that you will find on the roadside when you travel to the Eastern province. But what the local government there is trying to do is trying to make that experience, worthy and interesting for people that visit. And I think the bank is helping on that front as well. Not dwelling too much, but a lot of tourism infrastructure, something is needed, not only infrastructure. We need is now a change in mindset, thinking out of the box, for example. What can we do in addition to the basic tourism sort of nuts and bolts and, bread and water kind of investments that can be done that will attract more interest by donors, by investors, and of course, ultimately people who visit. So the last slide I wanted to share was really basically stressing again on local economic development and how the economy contributes about 6.1% of the global economy. This represents about 4.3 trillion. So there's a huge, also Fram Kitagawa saying, gives both urban and rural areas. And this is an opportunity where neglected areas can be the social inclusivity and cohesion. So, where
Yaritza, thank you very much. Your connection is going down from time to time. So I think with this, we can wrap up and get an understanding of the end of the presentation with your slide.
Right.
So thank you so much. Because we cannot hear you
Victor,
so much.
Can I just finish with this? Oh, okay.
No, but please try. Go ahead. Okay. Let's try if it works.
I wanted to finish with the last slide, which was actually the slide on, I don't know if you can see it, I don't know, anyway, it was a slide where I wanted to show you a remote location in India, which actually,
so sorry, Yaritza,
can't see it? Cannot see it?
Yeah, we can see it now, but your connection is choppy, so please try to do it like fast in 1 minute, because otherwise
I just want to, 1 minute. So basically what I wanted to say was people were, these cherry blossoms actually grow in November, and the cherry blossom festival was started in a very remote part of India. And the community started growing more of these trees because they see pride in it, and there are art festivals now attached to this. And the last slide I wanted to give you is actually a picture of the flower dome in Singapore, just to respond to Mr. Hettiarachchi's point that flowers can indeed be art installations as well. And these are actual flowers growing, they're not plastic flowers. And yes, you can use art, flowers for Sri Lanka as well. So that's all I have to say. I don't know if I hope you were able to see the last 2 slides, but thank you so much. And I'm sorry about the connectivity issues.
Thank you so much, Yaritza. I'm happy the last part was able to be delivered. We were just having problems, so I appreciate that.
So sorry.
No problem at all. So thank you very much. So now we have a good understanding of what is the context of Sri Lanka. We saw the methodology and what our festivals can do actually and change economic development. And at this stage, I know we are a little bit out of the time that we have for the event, but we're going to stand around 15 minutes if you can stay with us in the audience, because we want to now unpack how the methodology can actually be implemented in a step-by-step guide, just to walk through what are the elements that we will need to look at in order to implement it. And how did we come out with this was by working together with Yaritza and the Sri Lanka government in trying to see how the art festival methodology that France implemented in Japan could then be transferred to the Sri Lanka concept. All of us work together and come up with what are the elements that needs to be assessed, and started to look at that in Sri Lanka. And this was just to start unpacking the steps that needs for this translation. So let me walk through them and go through this presentation very rapidly. And I'm going to start just giving you the context. What we are trying to do here is to promote local economic development and sustainability. So it's very important to do it in a sustainable way that is environmental and social, right? And the opportunity here is to reconnect with the travel and tourism industry and accessing the new markets that are developing there. Now, we have a great opportunity with COVID. It's true that with COVID, tourism and travel industry got hit the hardest, but it's also true that it's resetting, and it's resetting into the sustainable way because it's going into the high value market. Less tourism, less massification, and more niches that you can look into, which brings higher access to a potential largest market, right? So what we're trying to do is, can we connect these areas in developing countries, many of them rural, that are outside these markets, to this opportunity and do it in a sustainable way? Now, to do that, we will leverage this opportunity. As Franz has said, the important thing of art is it can do this, and it can bring the human dimension into this and do it with the local community. It can inspire and connect beyond just an economic development that doesn't have this spiritual connection, right? So that is the beauty of leveraging the art, and it can bring the natural elements. And we've seen we can also bring the crafts and the festivals that are tradition in the country, including the flowers, the cherry blossom, and so on and so forth. So let's go through the steps, right? So we unpack it. What are the steps that we need to look for in every location? And the beauty of this is we believe that this can be done in any location of the world. And we did that by showing it in the Sri Lanka case. So we will need to start looking into these 5 elements. So we go into site identification, what sites can be interesting for an art festival, and discovery of what are the assets that can be leveraged for that. Then you need to look at the local community and the creative champions, and then the local team and volunteers that you can attract, and how can you connect with the global international art community and creative talent. And finally, you will need to secure the budget and implement the festival. Now, one interesting thing that Fram brought is, how do you make this festival a catalyzer that lets the region continue leveraging the artistic assets and the connection with the international market throughout the year. So we're going to go through all of this little by little, and I'm going to rapidly explain what is inside each of them. So for the criteria for site identification, as we said, there are many sites, there are many areas that can have potential, and in reality, you can do this everywhere. You just need to find what are the triggers that will let you leverage them with the art festival. So the most important thing that we start with is there a political will and a community buy-in? It's very difficult to do this if you don't have the willingness of the local people that really want to embrace this and be part of it, and you don't have a political champion that helps you. And political champion can be the government, can be a local institution, an NGO, and can be even a corporation that is connected with the region and interested in local economic development. The question is, do you have the ability to connect with someone that really wants to drive this and help you galvanize the local community and get a buy-in and commitment in participating from the local community? The second thing is you need to really harness the community solidarity. As we said, buy-in is just the first step. The next one is, can we put get together the community and galvanize them just to work together towards a common goal? And what you saw in the art festival methodologies that Franz saw us before is that was about revitalizing and getting additional value for the regions because they really believe in them. They wanted the regions to go back to be vibrant, right? And to get back from an earthquake, for instance. So you need to try to bring that kind of approach and goal that will harness the community, and that will connect with the festival in itself. Then you need to assess the untapped potential for tourism. So this is an interesting thing because we look at the tourism infrastructure, communication, is it an easy way to access this region? Does it have hotels or not? Does it have that infrastructure? But really that doesn't matter so much. In reality, what matters is it will attract or not tourists. And it doesn't matter it's difficult to travel there or that the hotels are not up to the standard of high value clients, because it can be an adventure too. So you have different ways of connecting and you don't need to be at the state of the art. That will evolve naturally as you attract tourism. So the important thing is, does it have anything that can drive tourism and that attraction? The other thing that we look at is to discover the local and creative elements. And that can be, as we saw, environmental kind of and landscape elements. It can be the beach, or it can be a bridge, that is another one, but also creative assets that can be like a neighborhood, or can be all buildings that were industrial and can be revitalized and with adaptive reuse. This is just some examples that of Fram's work in some of the festivals. This is, for instance, in Echigo-Tsumari, how they took a tunnel that was an abandoned tunnel used for related activities to minery, and they converted it to an installation with several stations that now is completely revitalized and helps the whole area around it. And it's also connected directly with the nature. Then in another festival, this is Ichihara, which is a semi-rural area next to Tokyo. What the art festival did is connect with a railway line that was underutilized, and I was in the present side, to leverage all the stations in the line, and you can see some of the stations with art installations. That revitalized not only the stations, but also the communities around it, because the people will stop through the train and then go to the restaurants or the little towns that are there together. So it's a way of realigning a whole corridor, for instance. And the same can be said with all warehouses or theaters, you name it. You can choose almost everything. The question is, how do you get the value out of it? Now, these are the examples of what we look into Sri Lanka, and Yarisa mentioned some of them, but just to give you a sense, it can be from food, an intangible asset, dances or festivals. It can be bridges, it can be natural assets like the beach, that is a fantastic one down there, or it can be religious landmarks. It doesn't matter, you just need to find the connection. And as Fram Kitagawa was saying later, then the connection has to happen also with the local community and the international artists that will bring a new dimension to this landscape. It will connect it with the art, but also will connect it with the local community. So at the end, it's kind of a co-creation process that will happen. So the next thing we look into is the local champions and the global network, right? How do you connect both of them? And when we look into that, you have to consider two things. First, you need a local champion in the community, someone that will mobilize the community and bring this local community into the art festival. You want the restaurant owners to also want to put some of their art installation in their facilities, the same as other business owners, the same as having them in schools or public centers, and be part of the community, that they participate, as we saw with the elderly population in Echigo-Tsumari, that they were preparing one of the art installations. So that connection is very important. The other thing is you need to connect with the local artists in the country. How do you bring the creative talent that can be local and also regional to develop the artistic talent in, for instance, in this case, in Sri Lanka, and also be part of the festival? Actually, they will be the engine of the festival and drive it more, right? And that will connect also with the arts and craft and the local culture of the region and bring those industries also to the festival, gaining more value. At the end, you also need to connect it with the global community of arts. And for that, you also need a bridge, and we're gonna see it in a little bit. The other thing is we need volunteers, right? We need to also bring someone that will energize the festival, and the best thing is to have local and international volunteers, as Fram just commented before. Now, the other element we will need to connect it to that market of high value tourism is some international network of artists. We will need to have at least a connection, one or two or three, that can leverage the global market and provide an access, something that will attract tourists to come. And what better than an installation from a renowned figure, or some art installations that not only can become an experience, it can be something that wants tourism to experience more than once, right? And then connect with the other artist scene that is around. So if you bring the landscape and the natural assets with some of these landmarks, you have the combination that you need to attract the global tourism. And that will help the local economic development directly. Now with the community buy-in, it will percolate in the rest of the economic fabric of the region. Now, once you have all that, then you have to start in the implementation phase. We haven't done that. These are just the concepts that are ready for that. You will need to develop the concept and start the planning, do the implementation design, and then the event execution. And as Fram said, at the end, you probably have the festival for some months. It's a biennale or a triennale. The rest of the year, you need to see how do you continue activating. The most important thing is the sustainability of these events. This is a catalyzer. What matters is what is left in the region, in the community, and how can this continue create value for the local economic development and activate them not only socially, environmentally, but also in the economic way. And that's basically all the elements that we wanted to walk you through. We will now have around 5 minutes to 7 minutes for Q&A, and I just want to open the floor for that. So with this, we go to the Q&A, and let me just start with some of the questions that have been put in the chat. I would like to remind you, if you have any questions, you can either raise your hand or just put it in the chat directly. If you put it in the chat, we will just take them to the stage. So the first question is for Fram, and thank you, Fram, for staying connected. And the question is about the funding. The question is, hello, I am interested to know how the funding is organized for all the interesting work. So in the case of a festival, how do you get the funding and how do you organize it? Probably more it's about what are the sources of funding and how do you can manage that if you want to develop our festival. Fram, over to you.
Yes, as for Echigo-Tsumari festival, things have been changing every time, but on the average, 600 million yen is the funding that has been spent for the 3 years. And of that, 1/5 is from the local governments that are hosting this event. And another 1/5 is the admission fee, what we call passport fee. And that is funding another 1/5. And donations and corporation sponsorship also giving us fund of about 20% of the total. And then gradually the national government has got interested and started to fund about 20%. So that's how things have played out. So initially, the local government and admission fees were the ones that we started with, but then we were receiving the donations and support, and then the funding from the government, national government, because it has become a good tourist spot. So that's how it went.
Very much. So basically, sorry, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Victor, please go ahead.
No, so thank you very much. I mean, just to recap, in part, to start, we need a part of it from someone that will help catalyze this, and it can be the local government, or it can be a particular sponsor, the one that is like championing this, right? Local governments usually work better, but in other cases, we can even think about a corporation or a local economic development NGO. For instance, I'm thinking in the US that they have that. And the other part can be for the fees. As you grow the festival, you start getting more sponsorships. Is that the story that we have seen?
Yes, exactly.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So I think with this, we can answer the question that there is a need of some catalyzing funds. There is a part of it that is sustainability that you will get out of the festival. And after that, you can raise funding as you develop the festival and it gets a name. I'm going to go to the second question, which is for Yarisa. And and it's about the Sri Lanka project. And the question is to ask why the Bandaraguela site and the festival was chosen for this and specifically. And on this, let me just give some context. What we did until now is just explore how the methodology could be applied. And I don't, at this stage, with that methodology identification, no area in particular was chosen. We were just identifying regions. But I pass you, Yarisa, in terms of the Bandaraguela Art Festival and how it has been identified or chosen. If Yarisa can connect. She may be having connecting problems. So I'm going to pass to the third question, and if she can come in, she will let us know. The third question is about who does the initial mapping, the identification of assets, a complete outsiders, or whether it's an inclusive self-discovery exercise. So I think in this case, it was a combination of a local team and an international team. As I said, this was done together with the local World Bank team, with the Sri Lanka government, and it was done also together with Fram team that helped us throughout the process. And we also got the support of a local artist that was connected with the local art community that could travel domestically in Sri Lanka and also help us in this identification, understanding the context of Sri Lanka better. So it was a combination of all those actors. The local support is very important. As we said, if you don't have that, it's difficult to understand what are the sites or the value of the area. If you don't have the international one, it's difficult to understand what could be the potential for the global market. As Fram saw before, some of the art installations, the value of the art comes from this interaction, right? So the same was done with the identification of the areas. And I think that answers this question. So maybe as Yarisa cannot connect.
Yeah, I can, Victor, if I have a chance, then I can answer it because my mic is.
I was going to ask you, sir, right now. So please go ahead.
Why Bandar is selected? Because the Bandar is one of the favorite tourist attraction here, but in between Ella and the Haputele, those both areas also very popular in the tourists. So that in 2-3 years back, they have this type of festival in a very small scale. So that then I want to, again, these are not, starting from the beginning, so that I want to give some kind of small support, then we can initiate it again. And it is very close to Haputale and Ella. Those are very, very tourist attraction. In addition to that, now the Nuvarelia is another tourist action. It is still continuing. Then we can get the support from the Nuvarelia. That's why I selected the Bandar.
Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary, and thank you for staying connected and being able to answer this question. So we can complete all the questions that were asked. And I think with this, we have completed all the questions, and the time is up also for the event. I want to thank very much all the speakers that participated. Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for connecting from Sri Lanka and giving us the whole context. Fram, it was an honor to have you too. Thank you so much for being part of this event and sharing with us the methodology. And thank you so much, Yarisa. Sorry for the connectivity issues, but that's what happens when we connect several locations. So really appreciate your understanding. So with this, we conclude the event. And before doing that, I want to send a big thank you to all our participants for joining us today. You are the reason we make these events, and we hope we could have provided value to you. This is our third installment of our Creative Cities event series, so please stay tuned for around 4. You can also access the recording of our past events on our YouTube channel. We will have the recording of this event there too. TDLC also organizes talks on a wide range of urban development topics, so if you are looking to learn more, please check out our website or SNS channels via Facebook or Twitter. Thanks again, and we look forward to having you back. It was a real pleasure to be with you today. Have a great day. Thank you very much.